Hello everyone, it's so exciting to have you guys here. Congratulations on the release of Grid. I'm a huge fan of the series and it's so good to see the franchise back again.
Woo!
Yeah.
Yeah.
So working at Codemasters means working on great racing games. What was different about this project, and overall, how do you evolve yourself with each game?
Who wants to take that?
You did.
I guess I should start it,
most.
shouldn't I?
Yeah, you did the most.
Let the lead designer start first.
Well, I mean, Grid's been away for quite a long time. Watersport was what, 2014?
Only
like
have
that?
voice. I don't see the person who's talking. Yeah, that's good. all right. Okay. Come on.
Yeah, Grid's been away for a while, so the main thing here was just to bring it back and try and match some of the audio quality that we've raised on the Dirt Rally series in the meantime. I think the big difference, obviously, between Grid and Dirt Rally is that Grid's a multi-car game. You've got more than one car on the track. Obviously, Dirt Rally's got Rallycross. But what we really wanted to build was the sense of a race day event to make it exciting, a little bit of kind of Hollywood-style drama, but not losing sight of the simulation that's at the core of the game, making sure that everything is a little bit larger than life, but still like realistic and believable and feels good when you're playing it.
Life plus.
Life plus, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So feel free for anyone who wants to speak. You can.
We should do intros, really, shouldn't we? So, yeah,
Yes.
I'm lead.
I'm Ollie Johnson, so I'm the dialogue producer, and that's basically all the speaking, writing, speaking and writing.
Yeah.
We are David and Lorenzo. We are the Engine Bros.
Yeah, we work with Dave Sullivan, who's not here.
Yeah,
making the engine noise and death prematurely.
World class engine noise.
Yeah. Just go brrr down the mic. It's great. It's wonderful to watch.
I do it with my armpits.
Yeah, it's a thing of beauty. I'm Justin, and I'm the
Get in the camera.
Yeah.
Oh, meant to be over here, am I?
Yeah,
That's it. My name's Justin. I'm the principal audio programmer.
He normally has a more regal beard.
I do. I shave for fun and charity, except not for charity.
Okay, going to next window, and also tell me where you are.
So we're in our lovely studio in Southam, which is it Atmos certified yet? If it's not Atmos certified yet, it will be shortly Atmos certified.
Yeah. All right.
And it's very fancy schmancy. We've only just had it built. So.
Yeah, we've got a TV that goes up and down on a kind of track.
Yeah. Which right now we should totally be using, but we're not.
We should do, yeah.
It's like James Bond.
When it's going up, you have to remember to stop it before it hits the ceiling.
Telling people that.
All right. Okay. Next one.
Who's
You want to take it, Julian? Julian.
Yeah. So Julian, sound designer and various features implementer and stuff on the game. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's my first game at Codemasters.
Awesome. So next one.
Where are you, Julian?
So yeah.
No, wait,
Have we crashed again?
Where are you?
I'm working remotely from Paris at the moment. Yeah. Sorry.
I'm Gonzalo. We're from the Runcore team on the second Dolby Atmos non-certified room, and I'm a general sound designer of things that are not cars.
Yeah.
Gonzalo did all the music implementation.
Yeah, and crowds
bugs
and all UI.
and UI.
Yeah.
Awesome.
No, creating bugs is my job.
Gonzalo did pretty much all of it. Actually, the rest of us, we just
Put together. Yeah.
We had a row of 5 hammocks.
All right. Next one.
I'm Harun Tantre. I'm here in the Cheshire team as well. Joined Grid pretty late on, but like focused a lot on the crashes and the more wishy, as Jeff likes to say, Hollywood elements.
Could say you had a rather big impact
Yeah.
Yeah, you could say that.
So I'll leave now. It's not going to get any better than that.
All right. Okay. I think we got everyone, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Not the whole team though. There's other people
Yeah, there's
that were too slack to show up today.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Okay. With the start of each game, do you guys record all the sounds from scratch, or do you use old assets too? And if yes, what are you looking for in each new recording?
There's a mix. It would be kind of crazy to just start from scratch for every single game. I mean, the amount of time required to do that and expense wouldn't really justify it. So each game we just focus on improving the things that most need improvements. So most of the surfaces, for example, we would have taken from whatever was knocking around last, probably Dirt Rally 2 and a bit of F1. But then for a couple of things that were specific to Grid, we would have re-recorded or made new stuff for the... Like Grid has circuits and tracks that you wouldn't find in F1 and you wouldn't find in Dirt. So there's a few things you need to improve there. Whereas
we do try and future-proof our recordings a little bit as well. So if we record in a vehicle, for example, we might record a bit more than we actually need, or with more mics than we might actually need, or whatever, just to make sure that kind of when I guess technology sort of catches up with our kind of recordings, that we've got more to play with. So it's not like so we do make sure that we capture maybe even more than we need, so that we've always got stuff to play with, so that old recordings, while they may be old, they can be refashioned, or we can bring a bit more of it in. They can be played in higher definition. There's plenty of ways that kind of old assets can have sort of new life breathed into them almost as well, I'd say.
We're always looking to come up with new ways of doing recordings as well, pushing boundaries. I remember one slightly abortive attempt to actually hook into the vehicle management system to record out information to go along with the actual audio recordings, which is only stymied by the fact that a number of the teams pointed out that their vehicle management systems were actually under many layers of NDA, and under no circumstances are we allowed to hook into them, which kind of put an end to that project. But there's technical solutions that we come up with which probably you wouldn't look at first time when you're thinking of recording a car.
Or collisions were all new on this game. All of our loose parts and rattles, most of our damage is new. Crowds came from cricket, didn't they? Mostly?
Yeah, like another reason like why we sort of use sounds again is that we wanted to sort of refresh the crowds from the last Grid and even Dirt, for example. So you do start hearing the same things. And we actually found that I recorded quite a while ago for the Brian Lara cricket games, that we'd recorded a bunch of crowds out in, London or in the West Indies or Australia. So a whole bunch of different crowds that just sound totally different to crowds that we'd recorded before. And they're actually like a really nice sort of high definition. You could hear a lot of character in them, because cricket crowds are, fairly sparse, but they're enthusiastic, and you get a lot of clapping, and you get a lot of cheering, and you get a lot of sort of whistles and things that you can really pick out. And actually putting that into the game, as opposed to like a race day crowd that we might have recorded, really sort of refreshed the sound of it. So actually going back and using sounds that we'd previously recorded for a different game, again, it sort of breathed this new life into recording, so we can kind of let them rest for a while. And because they're recorded in such high quality, we could bring them back and repurpose them 10 years later, and they still sound great.
And I guess we should move on to the big ticket item, which is the car recording. So generally, like, we will try to get the right car every time there is a car in the game. It's not always possible, because it might be hard to find, it might be just simply too expensive to do.
It may not exist anymore.
Yeah. If we've already used that car in the previous game, then hopefully the previous recording and the assets that we've made will be able to reuse. I think some of the ones from earlier Grids, we went back and reprocessed them because we were taking a different approach.
Yeah.
But I'll let the engine guys talk a bit more about that.
Yeah, well, you summed it up pretty much. Most of the recordings we did anew.
and some other cars that we couldn't source, or it was impossible to actually get the car. We went back on to previous recordings that Chris has done, because we have Chris Jojo who's taking care of recording and sourcing all the cars, and then we would reprocess all the assets and make new engine bundle. Can I say that word?
Yeah.
Make new engine bundles for our cars from the same assets, but so that they would fit the style of grid.
How many new cars did you record in this one? It's like 30, something like that?
I think around 50.
Really? Was it?
We recorded
a lot.
A lot of cars, and
because Grid's been away for a long time. With a game like Dirt Rally, because we've done what was it? We did Rally 1, then Dirt 4, then Dirt Rally 2.
Yeah. The focus has been on rally cars and specific type of car.
And building up a library. And when you're doing that, like every year, every couple of years, you're kind of adding to your collection of libraries, and everything's done at the same quality and the same kind of spec. Whereas if you go back to the recordings then for Grid 1 and Grid 2, a lot of them were not really good enough for what we would want to do now. So some of those cars, even though we had them in previous games, we still had to go out and re-record to get better source material to work with.
Yes, we've increased the size of the sweep that we use for the cars since the Grid days. And for anyone listening, what the sweep refers to is the amount of time that we record the car accelerating from idle up to its rev limiter. I think it used to be something like 10 seconds. I think we increased that.
12. It was 12, and now it's 18.
There we go.
Just means that it sounds better.
We get more clarity.
And then in maybe 5 or 6 years, we might, technology might allow us to sort of record, for even longer and get more definition in there as well. But for now, that's probably the number that we've arrived to ensure that it's as good as it can be now, and maybe able to improve as well over a few years. So it's not just outdated the moment kind of we get it back to the to the farm here. It still kind of lasts a good while.
It's a next gen. It's a memory thing. So as we move into the next generation of consoles and PCs, we'll be able to use even longer sweeps or multiple sweeps to generate a single set of accelerations.
We've been talking about 50 new recordings as well. I mean, that probably looking at the most we'd ever record in a single day is like 2 or 3 cars or something like that. So and it's one guy with a buddy sometimes, basically going all over wherever these cars are, because it's easier to get the person to the car than the car to the person. Especially if it's a collector. So we have to try and find an airfield, and and it's it's a massive undertaking just to get an owner of a very, very special car to say, yes, we will allow you to take this to its absolute limit. And it's a real, it's very difficult to get it to the point where they will allow us to record it.
Some owners wouldn't do it.
No, I mean,
won't let you rev it to the limit side.
There are risks as well. We had a rally car here at the studio that a guy brought along, and we revved that up to its limit, and the engine blew up. So it does have there are risks involved in doing these.
The same happened on one of the cars that we recorded for it.
Yeah. Fun fact: I've worked on a recording of a car. And while I was listening back to the recording, I can hear a voice saying, quick, get out. And like, take the mic. And the car actually took fire. And it was crazy.
Not Grid.
I was like, what's going on here? Who's saying that?
Not Codemasters.
Was that back at your other place?
No, it was upset. Like,
damn it.
It was for Grid.
That's why we have insurance.
That's why there's insurance.
Chris wears a fire suit when he's in a car.
He always has a big bucket of sand with him at all times.
To be fair, he does wear a fire suit at all times anyway. It's just hazardous.
He's a hot, tame car recorder.
So I'm curious about the damage sounds, destructions of the cars when they hit each other. Can you talk about that a little?
Good. So I came in onto the project in the last kind of 9 months of it, and we had the damage sounds, and we're coming from F1 and Dirt Rally series, both very kind of serious,
realistic.
Yeah, realistic sim. Sim-esque kind of sounds. And I was kind of looking at Grid. I was looking at the kind of the driving style. I'm a big fan of the original Grid. I know kind of how over the top that is, and I really kind of wanted to recreate that. And I know this is a series where you're going to be crashing into stuff. The rewind, the flashback mechanic exists for that exact reason. So I know people are going to be crashing into stuff a lot, and I really wanted to kind of make that very, very visceral and very kind of impactful. Not in a pun way, but excuse the pun, but yeah, very visceral. But so my background is I've worked on a lot of kind of hyper real life, the action adventure type games. So I took that kind of approach that I kind of had experience in there and brought it over into the racing genre to try and kind of give it that kind of hyper real, visceral kind of crunch to things, and really kind of make you wince and make you go oof whenever you hit something where you go sliding into the tire wall or whatever it may be.
Yeah. A real good example of that as well is we have like a bunch of introductory races as well, where you really managed to sort of show off these like real hyper real impacts as well. And I think there's one at Brands Hatch in the rain where you're skidding out and you crash, and it's supposed to be this moment of you've lost control and your rival slipped past you, and you need to gain control, gain the place back. But without that sort of impact and that sort of sound design and almost the kind of drones and stuff that Haroon's put in there, it wouldn't quite, be as exciting or work or be this dramatic moment.
Yeah, it's taking this genre and it's with these kind of intro cinematics, it's trying to add this kind of cinematic feel to it, and it needs the sound to match that ambition and that approach. It needs to it needs to work together. You can't have one without the other.
Well, one of the things we made sure was that we weren't detaching too much from the real. So we had this hyper-real element of the main impacts would be something big and punchy, but always on top of that we'd layer some of the more realistic sounds. So the cars have a quite deep, detailed damage model where each part has its own damage level and it rattles or swings or gets detached and flies off. And we were able to detect whenever there's an impact what part is getting damaged. So on top of that big impact that you made, there's always some detail layers specific to the part that's being hit. Just add some more variation and have some more detail and some feedback from the player as well.
Yeah, they work together really nicely. So you have the initial big impact, and almost as you drive off or you recover or your car stops spinning out, you'll hear all the parts detaching or rattling, and you can kind of audibly, subconsciously assess the damage. You can be like, okay, I can hear that my bonnet's gone, my windscreen's just cracked, and I don't know, the mirror's hanging up or something. It's you kind of get that aftershock feedback in the audio. It works really well. I'm really happy to send out.
If you're in cabin view, because the external sound as a damaged door swings open will bleed in and then be muted again as the door swing angle changes.
Yeah, so we've got a multi-layer system, as Gonzalo pointed out. When parts become detached from the car, will bleed through the audio to say, actually, this part no longer exists, and will play the main body, the main body structure of the car. So when you first have an impact, you're going to have the sound of the bonnet going and the wing going. On a subsequent impact, with those parts come off, you're going to hear much more of the main body frame of the car getting damaged and taking damage. We have a system called finite element modeling, and that's used to actually do the main deformations of the car. And we use some of that data to pull out whether the part has become detached or not, So we're actually hooking directly into the main damage dynamics of the car itself, and that's something we're going to take further, where we can look at how that damage system is moving, that finite element model grid is moving. And we could at a later date, maybe in future products, we'll look at actually starting to create more procedurally dynamic crash damage.
Yeah, that's awesome. So among all the games you guys have worked on in Codemasters, which one was the most challenging and why?
I think this one.
Jeez.
I mean, the obvious answer for me is Clive Barker's Jericho. But it turned out to be an absolutely amazing sounding game. But I
think Flashpoint for me, I think.
Yeah, probably Flashpoint.
Flashpoint was hardcore.
We'd never done an action game before. We're a racing studio. We're a racing studio again, and we dipped our toes into the action genre, and we had a great time working on it. But it was a real sort of trial for us. But we managed to get some amazing things in there, like that we're all really proud of to this day, and that we're hearing in games like Modern Warfare that's just come out now. Like, they're amazing weapon sounds that change from outdoors to indoors and things like that. Something that we did sort of 10, 12 years ago. But I mean, they're obviously taking it to the next level. It sounds incredible. But we just wanted to put that level of detail in there. Like, for example, our kind of mantra throughout the whole thing, and very much like Grid, is we wanted it to sound like realistic, wanted it to sound scary, wanted it to sound like a horror game. So when you were crouched by a Humvee and you were getting shot at, you did not want to put your head above the parapet, because it was just it was going to get torn off by a 50 cal or by a sniper or something like that. It needed to sound like scary, and I think we really managed, because it was all about emphasis, and we emphasized like bullet impacts and how they whiz past your head, and like things like a supersonic round would break the sound barrier and snap past your ear, whereas like a subsonic round might zip past your ear. So you kind of knew as well, there was a kind of language of sound where you knew who was firing at you. And one of the coolest things, well, two of the coolest things we had in Flashpoint was one, we had this kind of Justin implemented a distance, a speed of sound and over distance. So when you had gunfire or like an explosion happen, 10, 50, 100, 500 meters away, the sound would detach from the actual action itself and arrive at a later point. And I don't see that happening in games really. And it's just so cool.
It's the old one. You'll never hear the bullet that kills you.
Yeah.
Because it takes time for that for that gunfire to arrive, and it was most important, I think, for the big explosion. So we had a big set piece at one point where you called in a JDAM, and you see the massive explosion on the screen, and about 3 to 4 seconds later, then you heard it. And it's small details like that which are important, and those they're the same design decisions that we take on into other games, such as as Grid.
Just the little details and trying to find those bits of reality where it would get missed. Like, for example, with the Humvees as well, when you'd been ragging it around the island for a bit and you'd get out, you could hear the engine cooling down. And it was just a little touch, just those little touches that we like to put in. I think that's what we are best at. And I think it's those little touches and the little bits that we kind of persevere and strive to do, these little kind of nice little details that you don't often get. I think we're good at these little details.
So to give you an example, going back to Grid, we've got a vehicle dynamic system which has been written by our car simulation guys, and one of the things that they've got there is they dynamically model the entire gear train system, so that we can actually find out what the backlash is through the whole drivetrain. So, for instance, if you go offload and start going down a hill, the weight of the car will begin to accelerate the car, and we use that in the audio. We feed that information back into the audio engine, so that we can shift the on to offload sounds dependent on just how much power is going through the drivetrain. So you may be going fast, you may be accelerating, but the car will be offload because it's rolling down a hill. That you don't tend to see that particular scenario in racing games so often, but where you do tend to notice it is when you are going over bumpy surfaces. So say when you touch the the rumble strips, or if you go onto the grass, then you begin to hear the engine just fluctuating very gently because it's that power is going on and off as it's dealing with the unusual bumps and irregularities on the surfaces. And you don't need to have that sound, but if you put it in, you just get that extra layer of complexity to the engine sound.
Also, Julian hooked up a cool system with the race engineer. So like when you go, it's got a fire alarm.
Fire alarm test. 11 o'clock. Definitely not on fire.
It's all right, we're alive. No, so Julian hooked up a really cool system in Grid as well. Just a little detail that could easily be missed, but you've got your race engineer who feeds you information. But he's obviously on a fixed, like fictional point on the track, maybe near the start line. So the further you get away from that fictional point, the radio signal will sort of degrade a bit. And also when you go under a tunnel, that radio signal will just cut out completely or just fizzle back in. Or if you go over like like an overpass or something and the race engineer is giving you a bit of information, then it will sort of cut out a little bit, like you're listening to radio and you go under something. But Julian put that one in.
We just had some similar stuff on the tunnels in Paris with the fireworks. Julian, you want to just mention that one?
We've got like a semi-open tunnel in Paris, and you can hear the fireworks. So we get all the tunnel effects from the reverb and stuff, but you still hear the outside world because it's like semi-open on the right or left, depending on which way you're going. And then there's another tunnel that is like completely closed, and then that's a different approach to it as well. So nice level of detail. Yeah.
When's this going out, by the way? Because we haven't announced Paris yet. Not Paris.
Yeah, when is that out? That's November, isn't it?
Yeah, November. So
yeah.
Just bleep it.
Hang on. We're morning, aren't we? So when's the trailer out?
I don't know.
Might have to check with video about that.
Yeah.
Unnamed new track.
Yeah.
But may or may not be where Julian currently is. He's that keen on getting the right vibe for the track. He lives there.
Wherever it might be.
Wherever it might be.
Yeah. I love those Flashpoint games. I hope you guys continue making them.
That's not gonna
happen. We're a racing studio now. But we still, like I say, we still have that same ethos. Like Haroon was saying, he's brought his action game knowledge into Grid to kind of give it that feeling, and we wanted to get a kind of horror vibe into Flashpoint, and we'll continue to do these things. Like I know a lot of people say Dirt Rally is basically a survival horror game, because it's just terrifying.
Dark Souls is
pretty Dark Souls. If you crash on stage, you've got to go back and pick up your pace notes. No, it's we always try and get influences from more than just like this sort of just racing. We always try and bring in other influences as well.
Yeah. So if you could tell me one secret about designing a car engine, what would that be?
We'd have to kill you. It's a secret. We can't tell you.
There's a huge secret. Engines go round. So if you record that bit, you're golden. I don't think it's a big secret that we use granular synthesis.
I think there are some secrets that we still have.
Yeah, there are still some secrets.
One big secret that people don't want to confront.
Misinformation. We're going to give them misinformation.
No. I've talked to other sound designers that work on racing games from time to time, and they've asked me things. And when confronted with this piece of information, they always act like if it's not important, but it's actually the most important things of all. And it's you gotta be able to talk with the physics programmers and the physics department, because physics drives the audio.
Yeah.
If the audio doesn't sound good, it's probably because there's a problem within the physics simulation.
Absolutely.
The physics 100%. And handling is the conductor to our orchestra.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
What a soundbite.
Yeah, give that man a rise. No, it's absolutely correct. There's no way you can fake good audio, engine audio. If it's not coming from the handling system, then it's almost not worth doing.
And like what you're saying, how the kind of the engine and the audio reads off that world. So the more nuance that world can give you, and we'll only get more nuanced as we go, and it'll only affect the engine, in better ways. Yeah, it can have some freaky effects, though.
It can have some very freaky effects, but it's useful. I mean, the handling guys often will listen to the audio when they're setting their cars up, because it does give them information about what the engine and the surface is doing. No, I really shouldn't say about that particular because that is actually all I'll say is that our engines, our car sounds are set up in such a way that they give you more information about the gameplay and what the car is doing than you would have in real life. And so if you get to listen to the car and the way the car is sounding, it will tell you information about what the car is about to do rather than what it's actually as well as what it's currently doing. So an experienced player will subconsciously get back feedback cues from the audio to give them ideas about just how well they're driving.
Give us one example.
I'll just say surfaces. Yeah, the surfaces.
Traction on corners.
Yeah, traction and surface. Traction is an example of where that sort of gameplay audio technique is used.
Yeah. So.
There you go.
Who writes the dialogues of racing games at Codemasters? And I'm curious to know about that process.
I've already spoken far too much.
Yeah, but you like the sound of your voice.
I do. I love the sound of my own voice. I've got it.
Yeah, it's you.
No, so yeah. I mean, essentially, we know that we're not. Like I always say this, but we know that we're not doing Skyrim or The Witcher or something like that. We are doing a racing game, and racing and the player's focus on that race must at all times be the focus. If the dialogue gets in the way of that, then you really sort of failed as at what you're doing. And a good example of that would be sort of Grid 2. So I came on sort of very tail end of that project. And one of the things that we sort of found with that one is that people were getting really annoyed with the race engineer. He spoke too much. He was far too enthusiastic. There was just there's a lot of chatting all the way through it. And people didn't like it. It got picked up. Some people liked it, but a lot of people didn't. So the one thing that we changed for that was in Autosport. And we designed like a radio system so that the engineer actually rarely speaks to you anymore, other than sort of giving you a little bit of a push at the start or some critical information. But we make sure that if you want information, then you can get it, you can request it. But we won't just keep giving it to you because you've got to have voices all the time. We let the player sort of be in control of how verbose the game is. So if you want to know sort of how far ahead your rival is, you can press the button. If you want to know how damaged your car is, you can press your button. But in Grid 2, we were just giving you that information as and when. So basically we've kind of learned between those two projects very quickly to be really disciplined about when you can play dialogue, because as much as my job is writing dialogue and playing dialogue, it's actually understanding when not to speak as well. And I think that is just as important as when to speak. And the final example of that is that we actually moved a lot of the engineers' start line kind of expositional speech from the engineer, like straight into your ear, to these race commentators, because they're just sat in the world. They're talking to the crowd. They're not talking directly to you. So it feels a little less confrontational. So that was just another way of kind of seeing it and just making sure that, you know, it's not annoying.
It makes more sense as well, because in the game you're a professional racing driver. Your engineer is not going to be explaining to you
moments before the race.
Basic stuff like, hey, you're in this track, it's raining, try not to crash.
Yeah, you've got 4 wheels on this thing.
Coming first would be a good idea, that kind of stuff. Like, letting the commentators say that stuff to the crowd means that you can deliver that kind of information and help set the scene, but it's not in such an invasive
condescending way.
And the tannoy speakers in the track are positioned where they would be in real life. So if there's crowds, then there's going to be a tannoy speaker. So if you're driving around the back of Brands Hatch, you're not going to hear any commentary because there's nobody there to listen to it, and it would be bizarre to have the commentary there, which was it did take a little while for some members of the team to kind of get over that. Like, we've recorded all this commentary, why can't you hear it all the time? No, because you wouldn't. We're trying to create a race day. We're not trying to create a broadcast experience.
And the dialogue must always sort of feed the game. So like the commentary is there just to provide a little bit of information, but mainly to make it feel like a race event. I mean, I went to the, you know, been to a couple of race events over the last couple of years, and like this year I went to the Rallycross at Silverstone, and the commentators are just chatting the whole way, all day. They're talking about sandwiches, they're talking about music, they're talking about, like, you know, how a Rallycross race is done. The you know, they've just got to spend 8 hours just finding stuff to talk about, but then when the race goes on, they're constantly talking. It is just a barrage of information. It's like, you know, it's like listening to a horse race. Justin was there with me, and it's exciting. But I think if you were to do that in a game, one, you'd need more dialogue than FIFA have, and it probably would get a bit annoying. So again, it's just about that restraint to give you the feel of a race day, but just to not, like, you know, do your head in, basically.
Yes, so to listeners, this is a plug. Speed Machine at Silverstone. Go to it. It's a great weekend.
Yeah, it was really good.
How much do you pay for that?
No. Oh, no, we're in trouble now.
Like
That's me fired.
Sometimes, like the dialogue, you know, is a gameplay element. Like in Dirt, we have the pace notes and things like that. And you know, for many years, we wanted to sort of connect the pace notes, gel it in a little bit better into the world itself. So we started best way to do it, and this was, you know, the sound design lead on the project, Stu Ross. You know, why not just take the direct feed out of the rally driver's helmet and just record that instead of recording into like a really expensive microphone? Just record into a crappy microphone, because there's no you know, there's no kind of program in the world that's going to make you know, that kind of realistic helmet sound, or the kind of blown out plosives and stuff that you normally avoid, but actually in a rally game, coming out of a helmet, it just makes it sound so cool. And we also throw them around in our simulation machine to, you know, and it's on the actual track as well. So when we record the pace notes for Dirt Rally, they are reading out the actual pace notes of the actual stage whilst being driven, and the game is sending physics feedback, which is, you know, audio driven as well, to this sort of motion platform, and it's jiggling them about. So you not only do you get this real sort of direct feed from the real helmet, you also get in the actual stage vibration and vocal performance feedback, and all this stress in the voice as well. So, you know, again, another level, a little detail, but a lot of realism.
We do that at multiple speeds down the track as well.
I was going to say it's more detailed, and we did it before Spider-Man.
Yeah, we did it before Spider-Man.
I think we first implemented that technique on Dirt Rally 1.
Yeah. So, what's the main DAW in Codemasters? And please separately tell me what is your personal favorite DAW.
Reaper.
Can I do
Julian's going to say Pro Tools.
Yeah.
I just do all of them. I use Audacity. It's the MS Paint of the audio world.
Yeah, I know. So why Reaper?
To use mobile.
So why do you guys like Reaper, and why do you use it all day?
Well, the big advantage of Reaper is that even the commercial license is what, $250 or something, compared to whatever Nuendo is, about 800 quid. And you multiply that out by 15 sound designers is quite a cost. But actually, I mean, Reaper's really great, and there's a couple of things that Reaper supports, for example, ambisonic work that are really quite difficult to do in any other DAW.
You can go much further beyond ambisonics. It's got like hundreds of channels.
Ambisonics.
And you can script your own behaviors. I like to script for Reaper a lot.
Gonzalo,
please talk about Reaper just for a moment. You can't tell about our secret tool though. Sorry.
No, I will not talk about the secret tool. But Reaper's great. It is the best thing that I was ever created in software. Especially because it lets us create our own software inside it.
You can script for it.
Yeah, you can script for it. I won't talk about our secret tool, but I'll say that I'm on the side now developing a game inside Reaper.
It's Gonzalo's secret sauce.
There are solutions which are as good as anything you'd spend hundreds of pounds on in as standalone systems, and they're just developed for free. The community is fantastic. As someone who runs projects with 100, 150 tracks, and I don't know, like 6. I've ran as many as 10 plugins all running at the same time on one track, and it's just rock solid. It's stable. I had a lot of crashes using Pro Tools. There was a lot of artificial limitations to upgrade to HD.
Which I'd make the faces now. He's sad.
But the fact is you can have I can make something with 30 plugins running on in a half a second piece of sound design, and I don't have to worry. Ever. And the video is rock solid as well. I don't have to run through 20.
Julian's absolutely livid.
And everything's non-destructive. I use Pro Tools Fuse. The best thing as sound design as well is being able to just vary speed playback on every single clip, all the different speeds, however you want to set that up, and it's done in seconds. It's just very fast to the workflow, and I'm not even particularly efficient. Gonzalo's all about efficiency as a shortcut for everything. I kind of just wing it, but even then it's much faster than I've had in previous DAWs. It may or not be industry standard.
He's got to be efficient, given that he wants to spend most of his time playing a game he's made in Reaper.
Is it Flappy Bird? Is it Flappy Bird?
No, it's a shooter.
It's a shooter.
It's the new Flashpoint, I guess.
It found us out.
Reaper has got his own sound database. With Pro Tools, you have to buy SoundMiner, which is really, but it's very expensive.
I don't feel like we're being fair. Julian, why do you like Pro Tools?
Yeah.
Well, so you say about the Media Explorer in Reaper, but Pro Tools got the catalogs. You can create your own and stuff like that, which is it works decently as well. But I mean, that's a personal favorite, and I've been doing loads of linear work in it, which is linear. In contrary to what we do here. So using Reaper for almost a year now, it's it works. I must admit it works. So,
There are a few things because I used Pro Tools for quite a long time, when I was studying at uni and for a few years afterwards. And Pro Tools is great. One of the things that Pro Tools has that I really like is the random automation envelopes, because you can set it to make random points and just stretch it out over a track. Wow. And it's great for doing crazy glitchy stuff, and I've not seen that in anything else.
Well, you can speak. Gonzalo
made it.
He did make it. Because we did that on Onrush, didn't we?
Oh, really? Okay.
Onrush was with pure data, but I also have a patch that does that in Reaper.
Yeah.
It would be nice if Reaper would play videos without you having to install VLC. That would be good.
I'm still not hearing
version 3.
I don't know about this. I'm still not hearing the love for Audacity.
Any video that is not DNX HD and take up 5 gigs for a 2-minute video.
Yeah, you have to
complains about everything. So.
This is a very big question. This could be its own podcast.
So we've got other DAWs in the house. A lot of us have got copies of Sony Vegas, which is a bit basic as far as DAW functionality goes, but it's incredibly quick. Because we end up doing quite a lot of video work for prototyping, mocking things up, you can often find yourself doing stuff in Vegas.
You use SoundForge a lot still as well.
SoundForge all the time.
I hate Vegas.
Speaking of mocking things up and not quite DAW. Do you remember the Max MSP that you did? All Max MSP work you did?
Yeah, I haven't touched Max for a while now.
Yeah,
actually,
for the guns in Flashpoint.
Yeah, we use Max or Reactive for prototyping sometimes. We've got Audition licenses as well, which is good for spectral editing. Yeah, the engine team use that a lot.
RX.
Isotope RX is awesome, and spectral layers. We've got a few.
Yeah, spectral layers phenomenal.
All right.
It's almost like technology advances.
For certain things, I prefer spectral layers. For other things, I prefer RX.
I
think spectral layers does things that RX don't do. I don't agree with that.
Are you all about the RX?
There are things both quite deeply. I think RX is just better.
I think they're tools, and you can use them for everything. There are things that spectral layers does and RX does not.
Yeah,
and vice versa.
I mean, you guys have to care a lot more about editing spectral graphs and
and Audition as well. There are things that we do in Adobe Audition that are harder to do with RX.
So, speaking of RX, what is the most used plugin in Codemasters?
Our own one.
For me, it's probably Reaper's standard EQ.
The Reaper plugins are built in.
Sony Track EQ.
Reaper EQ, Reaper compressor, Reaper's little impulse reverb.
What about auto trim crop from SoundForge?
Oh no.
Yeah.
No. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Maybe I'm crappy using it because
maybe
when I try to do it, it always jumps out the wrong bits. But
Runtime probably is the plugin that we wrote ourselves for the Generate the Engine sound.
Yeah, custom wise plugins.
Custom wise plugins, that's that one engine plugin is pretty much used by the entire company for all the car engines.
We use Fab Filters a lot.
Fab Filter.
Total Bundle. I love Fab Filter.
Speakerphone too. We use that quite a bit, but it's very easy to over egg things in that. It's really cool, but like you have to. I feel it's one that you need to the first attempt that you have at making something that sounds like a tannoy or like a radio or something normally just sounds like an absolute mess when you put it in the game, and then so it's one of those sort of trial and error. It's really good, but you get carried away with all the cool sounds in it, basically.
I think everyone does that the first time they try to do some sort of radio audio, and all you can hear is just distortion and everything.
If you just knock it back by about 20% before putting it in, you're normally probably about right.
Yeah.
I'm a diehard Sound Toys user as well. Like I've used
Sound Toys is great.
Like I've used that stuff for probably about a decade now, so like it's just so ingrained in my workflow. I feel lost without it.
I think the Sub Booster plugin that you use is probably the most used plugin on the company.
Yeah,
your usage of
I can't. Do I want to reveal? No, it's fine. Brainworks make a subsynth, and that is the best low end generator I've ever used. You've just made me reveal my special sauce, so I'm very bad about that.
Have you tried the one that's built into Reaper?
Sorry?
There's one built into Reaper. Have you tried that one?
I haven't. I'll give it a go after this. Actually, I need to do it. I'm using a lot of it this week. So a lot of harmonic synthesis and kind of saturation and sonic granulizing, just sonic mangling. It's probably mostly done by the kind of work that I do rather than the rest of the team, but I always go to Sound Toys as my go-to for like pretty much everything.
We talked about getting Sound Toys for the whole team. I think the only reason we didn't was they wouldn't give us a discount. So Sound Toys, you listening?
So this question is again for all of you. What car has the best sound?
Largest
in general in life or in our game?
No.
Largest
in real life.
In real life,
Ferrari F40.
Uh-huh.
I am very opinionated about
I was going to say, you're going to say that
because he's Italian.
Just sounding great.
You were getting wood about the Volvo, weren't you?
The Volvo, the Volvo in Grid, that is, awesome. It's 5 but it sounds like a V10.
I disagree with all. I think the Tesla is the best sounding car.
Here.
Nobody ever heard of.
No, for me, it's the Lancia Stratos. There's just something about that. Is it Diablo engine?
No, it's a Ferrari
It's a
Enzo.
Yes, and yeah,
It's a six-cylinder.
and yeah, just an amazing car. The only downside is that it's so well engineered that it never backfires.
It's incredibly hot. You sit in the car and you got it just right behind you, and there's like no division, basically, just a little plexiglass thing that separates you from the engine, and it gets like easily 100 degrees.
But what a car!
Fahrenheit.
No, Celsius. It was freaking hot. You gotta keep your the windows of the car open,
Which
otherwise
is
you
difficult
just melt.
on that plastic because the whole car's made of plastic.
It's ridiculous.
It's a car. What a car though.
Yeah, but it's a great car. Yeah.
What is the Aston Martin that we had in the game? Is
Which
it the
Vanquish.
is it GT4 Vanquish?
Is it the green one or
We've got a Vantage on it.
We do have.
there's two?
It's a Vantage.
It's a Vantage. Yeah, it's the Vantage.
Get to not mention the other one.
I
That's
won.
insane. That sounds like real.
Cut that out.
racing.
There's no other Aston Martin.
In our game.
Yeah.
There's two cars.
Okay,
If we just
yeah.
swear those now, I'll have to get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fiddlesticks.
Just insane. I use it for half of the UI at least.
All right. So, what is your favorite racing game of all the time?
Crash Team Race.
Not counting Codemasters.
Oh,
Blur's wicked.
For me, Interstate 76, which is probably not a racing game, but it is a game about cars. But it's cars and guns, guns on cars.
Carmageddon 2.
Carmageddon 2, yeah.
Play it now, it's rubbish. But
Crazy
yeah.
Taxi.
Crazy Taxi is great.
Oh my god, Crazy Taxi.
I think I spent an inane amount of time on Gran Turismo A-Spec
Yeah.
when I was 15.
That was 3, right? A-Spec.
Yeah.
Good one, yeah.
Road Rash.
Oh, Road Rash is brilliant.
Uh,
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Sorry. I really like Road Rash.
I always think that SSX is one of the best racing games. People don't think of it as a racing game, but it is a racing game. You're doing downhill racing, it's competitive, you're trying to take out other people and boost. It's like a karting game on a board, it's great.
I mean, that's Tony Hawk Pro Skater then, for me. If that counts as a racing game,
No, that doesn't.
I would argue
I'm a big fan of the original Gran Turismo.
For me, maybe it's the Formula One management game I wrote on the Spectrum when I was
Reaper.
12. Little known that Reaper was available on Spectrum 48K.
Julian, what's your favourite racing game?
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the Forza series, but like everybody disagrees with me on that. Obviously,
Really? I'm with you, man. My favorite is Forza.
yeah. I think Forza Motorsport 6 was like a really good game. Nice career, nice sounding engines, and like good graphics for the time. So that was great. Yeah. I'm still playing it at the moment. So.
Nice.
I'm still waiting for a really good motorbike racing game. There's been a couple. There's been a couple. Yes.
Thank you. I've not worked on any.
Runcorn guys. What's your picks?
Definitely Midnight Club.
Oh.
It was just silly.
True.
And yeah, I enjoy silly games.
Yeah, I've spent a lot of time with Gran Turismo 1 and Gran Turismo 5. And also, Ubisoft did an F1 game in the 90s. I think it was just called F1 Racing Simulation or something. I had it on PC. I spent a lot of time with that. I don't know if it was actually good. I think it was quite good at the time because I remember it having it had all the official, the UI was all the same UI that was on the TV. And when I was a kid, that was very impressive. But I remember that being really good. I don't know how the engines sound compared to today.
Yeah, but back then the games were good because that was the cutting edge of their day.
Yeah. I think
you can't diss an old game just for being old.
I don't diss it for being old. I just think it's just like it's. I've got the nostalgic memory of it, and I haven't really looked at it in the cold, harsh light of how it actually was. But I had a lot of fun playing that game.
Some modern ones. I'm been enjoying Wreckfest quite a lot.
Oh yeah.
I think it's like, you know, I'll take a game home and like, you know, the whole family will watch me play it. I'll get them in and I'll say, "Can we play this game?"
Well, have to play it themselves.
Yeah. No, but like I'm just playing a game, and like, you know, interest will come and go. Like, are you going to come and watch me play that's what you say in your house to your cat. But no,
with your meal for one.
Yeah, but saying that, Wreckfest somehow has managed to just get everybody wanting a go, and then when they have a go, they want to play it more. It's a really, really good game. I mean, audio wise, I'm on the fence about it. Like the soundtrack's okay, and the impacts are really cool. But like gameplay wise, and just how it feels, it's just so good. It's so good. Like I really, really highly recommend. I really highly recommend Wreckfest and Reaper.
Who do you work for?
No, it's really cool. Wreckfest is great.
My name is Oliver Johnson, and this is my favourite.
Where's that?
You are the Commander Shepherd now of the audio world.
Yeah.
So, what are your favorite game of all time, no matter the genre?
Shit.
That is a hard question.
Doom, Thief.
Anyone knows
You just have to name one game.
I'm going to
right. Okay, we'll go around clockwise.
Right,
so Jeffro, one game. No, you're not allowed 3. 1.
Jethro, your favorite game is Factorio.
No, it's not. Factorio is amazing, and it makes me embarrassed when I look at how many hours I've put into that on Steam. And Minecraft is amazing, and I love playing that with the kids. I don't know. It's got to be Thief, really. Thief 2.
Wow, classic.
Gurney.
I think story-wise, it's got to be LA Noire.
But presumably not any other element of it.
Well, I like the setting and I like the story. I didn't really enjoy it. Some of it was shit.
My favourite game, but I didn't like it.
Shadow of the Colossus.
Oh, that's a good choice.
There's not even any doubt. Shadow of the Colossus. Best world, best art,
The soundtrack.
best story, best soundtrack,
Incredible.
best sound design.
Oh, yeah.
Oh man,
What a game.
take me back. I love it.
All right.
Probably for the fields, Final Fantasy VII. So I spent an insane amount of hours on that one, finished it multiple times, tried to save Aerith at the end of disc 1 by getting to level 99 with all characters just before, because somebody on the internet said it was a thing. So I tried and did it, but yeah, great soundtrack, great story, at least for when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
So I felt it was great and great graphics. But yeah, it was really cool. So I go with that one.
Justin,
It's a really difficult one. I mean, there's
we know it's difficult.
and it's difficult. I would have to probably say, for me, it's the first Deus Ex game.
Yeah.
Really good writing, and an excellent example of what can be done with good game design.
Yeah. It's pure game design, isn't it? Basically.
It's not just a great game. It's good, but I mean, as a game developer, you can look at it and say, actually, these guys were really pushing the boundaries of what was possible in presenting an experience to the player, which seemed open, which made a closed world seem really open without actually being an open world.
What do you think about the new Deus Ex ones?
Mankind Divided was really, really good. I think they captured the feel. Human Revolution was good. I'm not going to diss it at all. I enjoyed it immensely, but Mankind Divided really nailed the feel of the world.
Was that the first new one or the second one?
I'm getting this right.
Yeah, I still haven't played Mankind yet. But
Yeah.
I want to.
There's just some really, really good moments in that game, and just moving around the city, it just feels like you're part of a living, breathing world. And also, I think they really started to nail again the conspiracy feeling of the first one. I mean, when I was a teenager, I was quite into conspiracy theories.
Flat earther.
Yeah. The Earth is a carrot held up by elephants. Didn't you know? We only feel gravity because it's accelerating through space. No, so I kind of knew all of the conspiracy elements that were in the first one. So it was kind of like, you know, it was so cool, you know, to see somebody weaving all of this these rubbish ideas together into a coherent narrative, which no conspiracy theorist has ever managed in their life.
Saying that, it is really cool when a game can inspire like that, because we often go and play board games on a Thursday, and the other week someone was there and we were playing a game called Brass Birmingham, and it's all about sort of trading and, you know, copper and all that in like maybe 18th century Birmingham, West Midlands.
Same time.
Same era as Assassin's Creed Syndicate, and the guy that was playing with us, like just complete random because it's a social night at a board game cafe, knew everything about the game because he'd played Syndicate, and he'd like, well, in Syndicate, like, the whole thing about the beer, or the whole thing about, you know, when rail came into, you know, sort of existence, was it completely changed this, that, and the other. And it's something that it just sort of like kind of
world building, isn't it?
World building through, you know. So you got to give them props. Like you know, they you know, put stuff into the game that is, you know, is legitimate. You know, there's a lot of research and time and effort goes into building a coherent, good world, and when it does, it really inspires people and sticks in the mind. Julian.
I would say the first Halo game, especially the demo I got from an Xbox magazine, because I just got my first Xbox, I think, and I was playing the demo with a friend at the time. It's my most memorable video game memory ever. It was just so great, just perfect, best memory.
What's your favorite Halo?
I stopped playing after the second one, so I would say the first one.
One or two.
He loves the series so much you just couldn't.
Yeah.
In my opinion, the third one was the best, and you just stopped at second one.
Yeah, sorry, man.
Give it a try.
I will.
Yeah. Okay.
Guild Wars. I just spent way too much time playing it throughout my childhood, and I cannot remember the reason why, but I enjoyed it.
Our memories well spent. Yeah.
Yeah.
MMOs that way.
Sorry?
I said MMOs, they're evil that way.
Yeah.
Time.
I'll sink the teeth in you. Mine's Metal Gear Solid 3. I think that every single aspect of it, gameplay, visuals, sound design is incredible for the time. The mechanics, the fact they built a whole simulation system in there, the fact it's got that ridiculous James Bond-esque story, but it's every single element is done to the highest of the abilities at the time. It kind of was probably the first game that sort of switched me onto the idea of sound being a reactive element in gameplay. I know games like Thief had done it before, but this is my personal experience. Things like just hearing the rustling in the ground, the speed that you're moving affecting the footstep speeds, it affects how guards will spot you, missing your shot, hitting like a metal bucket on the other side instead, and then that alerting the guards by accident. There's all these elements in play. It's a really, really well-crafted game, and I try to play it every year. I haven't done the last couple of years, but I revisit it quite a lot. I'm also a big Kojima fanboy, so
nice.
That game.
Cheers. Game out soon, isn't there? Not some sort of walking simulator thing.
I'm going to jump back in here actually because Haroon just mentioned something that just reminded me something about Deus Ex, so we're going to jump straight back there. It was Deus Ex that actually got me into the idea of audio in games and audio programming. It used audio reasonably well for an old game, but there was just this one moment where you're near a helicopter pad, and as you approach the doorway or move away from the doorway, the blades of the helicopter would mute and come back. And I suddenly just realised, actually, this is occlusion of audio is a big thing, and that inspired me to put that same system into the Flashpoint games. So Deus Ex was also a big influence on me in my direction in the games industry. Cool.
Yeah. So what is the best game in the case of audio right now in the world? Not counting Codemasters again.
Call of Duty Modern Warfare
I'd agree. Yeah,
Yeah, it does seem to be.
I'd agree. It's fucking good. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I swore.
No, it's okay.
It's not. No, it's not okay. It's not okay. I shouldn't. That's a genuine. You can tell it's a genuine reaction. It's a very good sounding game.
I haven't played it yet.
Yeah.
Having not played it, having not played it, I'm going to say the Doom reboot from the other year.
That'll be good
because that was just incredible. It was slick. The soundtrack was amazing.
And that guy invented the new genre of music.
He did. Yes,
it's really cool.
Yeah.
Rainbow Six Siege is really probably the best.
And Rugby.
Yeah, that one's good as well.
Which one?
Rainbow Six Siege.
Rainbow Six Siege is fantastic environmental audio. In terms of mix, I think Star Wars Battlefront. I haven't played Battlefront 2 of the recent ones, not the ones from 10 years ago. Bit worrying if that was the best game. It sounded good when it was from 2004. Anyway, the reboots of the Battlefront series, the first one had the best mix, the fantastic use of HDR. I mean, DICE always set the bar whenever they release something.
Yeah.
Last of Us has a fantastic one. I'm really looking forward to Last of Us 2 because Last of Us has some of the most fantastic sound design. Like
Resident 2 remake had a really good
finished playing
sound.
that.
Yeah,
it's great. Oh, needed a swear. No, it's very good. It's very good, very atmospheric, and really good binaural implementation into what's a claustrophobic game. So it worked really well.
Nice.
Yeah, that was like I remember playing, like, just going back to what sort of inspired us into the industry. I spent many hours playing Silent Hill 2 back on the PS2, and just without audio, I mean, the game would still be freaky, and there's a lot of disturbing darkness within the game, but we all know that the audio made that game such a scary experience. From the there's a monster near and your radio starts going.
Yeah, exactly.
If I hear that these days, I think there's going to be some nurse with a scalpel running after me with no face. But it doesn't often happen. But it really inspired me to because I knew like how important audio is to the to your emotional sort of impact of the game, and it's just that game for me was just such a this is what I want to do. I want to put audio into a game, or I want to evoke a feeling using audio. And I think and going back to Flashpoint, that was the kind of the moment that I think that I first really managed to sort of achieve that, was getting people scared to be take a bullet in a shooting game, when people are used to at that point being quite a bullet sponge. A lot of that for the game design, because if you got shot, you'd bleed out and stuff like that. There's a lot of game design in that as well. But I do hear of people even playing it now saying that it panics them being shot at, and I think that is from playing Silent Hill to making people panicked in a game feels like a job done.
No, very very similar. Very similar approach. Is like that ability to invoke a reaction and an emotion, even if that's fear. is quite it's quite a powerful thing, and it's quite a rewarding thing to do. And, as you go through doing your job as a sound designer, being able to invoke that reaction, which I tried to put forward into bring it back to Grid, trying to put forward into the car crashes and Grid. I really want people to have that kind of gut feeling, and it's definitely horror games that kind of influence me to do that. There's horror in Grid if you look hard.
First game I ever did any serious audio work for was, in fact, a horror game that was called Cthulhu: Dark Corners of the Earth.
I played that game. I fucking love that game. That's just amazing. Wow. Yeah. But you started it.
It's like because he got passionate about audio. No one's gonna complain about that.
Somebody else has played it. Yeah, we sold a few copies.
You played Clive Barker's Jericho.
Yeah, actually, I played that game, but I have sort of a memory of that game. Yeah, to be honest, it wasn't that memorable in my mind. Yeah, but yeah. How about you, Julian?
Sound good.
Jericho sounded good.
Jericho did sound good. The first half sounded better than the second half.
Yeah, but that's game development. But that's not game development. That's a lie. That was a joke.
That Call of Duty game. We did things in that game which today just would not be allowed. I've got some. I tell you, I would have to go off mic, and I can tell you some great stories from the development.
Look, just to clarify, the first half of a racing game is the same as the second half. So we're all right nowadays. Okay? It's not linear. Everything has to sound good. Any car can be on any track. Has to all sound good. There can't be a weak link in there.
So how about you, Julian? What's the best sounding game in your opinion
ever?
Dirt Rally 2.
I'd say yes.
Did we win the
good
Total Award?
I have not checked. No, you didn't.
We got best racing game for F1.
It was a game called Dance of Death, and it looks like a pretty cool sort of detective noir story-led game. Like a sort of independent game.
Yes. Oh, Julian, what's your favorite?
One? Yeah. So from a it's cool coming from a sound design background to win that. And there was a lot of big games in there. You had Spider-Man in there, which again sounds really good.
Spider-Man sounds great.
Recorded the whole script twice with the kind of chill Peter Parker and then the fatigued Peter Parker.
You could say that rally.
Do that. There's not. It's not a cheap thing to do. It's a lot of work to get that right. And there's a lot of, I imagine there was a lot of cases where, they were like, oh, it doesn't work here because he's sounding knackered. Yet he's gone into a walking thing. And it's just like getting that working must have been a real.
We had that in Crosspoint because we had the 3 stress levels. If you were.
Hey, so we did it before Spider-Man and before Dirt.
Yeah, we did.
Wow, we did it twice before Spider-Man.
Because all the dialogue stress levels, didn't it? There was whispered if you were in stealth, and then when you broke cover, you'd start shouting, and if you were just walking normally, it'd be a different level as well.
Which now they're also doing in the Outer World.
Yeah.
They also they have like 5 layers.
Everyone's doing everything. Everybody's doing everything.
Codemasters did it first, but nobody recognises it.
Oh no. No.
Mind you, I did see
that's like the Dirt Rally. We were up for an audio award, and Tetris won it.
Yeah,
but that's
really good.
Tetris Effect is great, though.
Again, Tetris Effect.
That's the good one with Tetris Effect.
That was really. I could watch it for like 12 hours. I could watch.
I haven't even played it. I just watched it, and I'm like, this is great. Yeah. Julian, what's your favorite sounding game?
In most recent memory would be the 2016 Doom. Shout out to Mick Gordon for having a gameplay synced, heavy sounding soundtrack, melting metal and synthy stuff, and it just sounds so great, and it drives the gameplay so much and so well. But even just the soundtracks is worth replaying the game because it's just it feels like a thrilling arcade game, and you can replay it because it's I want to slay shit. It's pretty great.
I was in a, you wouldn't believe this, but I was in a heavy metal bar in Barcelona, and between playing Slayer and Megadeth, they actually played the Doom soundtrack, and it just blended in.
Wow, that's great.
But you could see people going, "What's this? What's this?" Sounds fucking great.
I find it really gratifying. There's a lot of metalheads working in gaming, right? Like you walk around the building, there's people in Slayer shirts and shit all over the place. But we never get to put metal in a game. There's not many games that have got hardcore metal soundtracks.
But Doom did it in this way that it disguised it as something else.
It sounds like 90 Nails.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. It's kind of the mix between because I'm deeply in electronic music stuff, all the synthy elements, and it mixes up perfectly. It's just it's tasteful.
It sounds like a 90s Nine Inch Nails record, which is the highest compliment I can give anything.
Yeah, exactly.
So that kind of genre is
that's industrial, isn't it?
It's sort of industrial.
Doom was. I heard that Mick Gordon said that it was inspired by Quake 3 or I guess 2, which was the soundtrack. The sound design was done by 9 Inch Nails. So actually, it's exactly
and it had this kind of off rhythm stuff of this more sort of modern gent music like Meshuggah and things like that, where it's this eight string kind of like, you know, sort of polyrhythm stuff as well, which just, you know, it's obviously sort of taken some inspiration from that.
I read an interview with Codemasters who was saying that when they started development of that, they weren't allowed to have a metal soundtrack, so they'd already commissioned him as the composer, and they're like, "It's not going to be metal. It's not going to be metal." It started off all kind of synth and electronic, and he started sneaking the metal in until everybody realised that it was awesome.
Well, actually, if you play Wolfenstein, the first one of the reboot, they actually got is it Frederick Thorndale from Meshuggah, the guitarist from Meshuggah, to write a track for the intro of Wolfenstein, and again, it's this very kind of polyrhythm electro music with like a detuned 8-string like single note guitar riff, like that kind of was a little precursor to Doom. So maybe that was the test bed. You have a go and have a listen to it. It's similar. It's very similar. But yeah, I agree. Like the Doom soundtrack does, like, it sounds like genres you've heard before, but you've never quite heard it in that way before. And I think it's, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if that keeps rippling through with the games, and you know, you start hearing those sounds.
I think he's done other Wolfenstein titles as well later on, like
New Colossus, I think, as well.
Yeah. Like some nice tracks in there as well.
But yeah, you know, it's I think away from metal is the idea of taking incredibly like specific genre, you know, heavily with doing entire soundtracks that, you know, heavily identifiable within a genre is quite a brave step for the games industry on the whole. You know, we kind of keep the cinematic feel, but to be like, this is metal, this track's metal, like I'm playing Persona 5, it's my favorite sounding soundtracks of all time. But like, yeah, you've got this whole 70s acid jazz vibe, and it works perfectly, but it's heavily within that genre. It doesn't stray from that genre. It might as well be an album of music. And I think the Doom has had an enormous effect on the soundtracks in game audio, but we're going to see the effects in maybe a couple of years' time. But I don't think it's going to be specifically within metal, but I think it's going to be the idea of having the risk of having like a themed, you know, consistency, and having an identifiable genre that this soundtrack belongs to. So rather than your kind of more kind of ambiguous, not generic's the wrong way, but ambiguous soundtrack work, which is fantastic, and it's incredible work there. But like, and that's a lot of that kind of comes from film. And I think soundtracks are starting to now draw from like music more, where they're like heavily like, this is the genre, like that this set that's going to score this game is going to be this kind of music, rather than this is a soundtrack. If that makes sense.
Actually, for me, one of the coolest sounding games lately is Transistor.
Yes.
From the Supermassive Games.
Darren Nold, I think his name is.
Maybe.
He's great.
It is
He's really good.
Absolutely cool. And for me, what stands out is it has a consistent tone, but it's cohesive with the narrative, it's cohesive with the mechanics. It all melts together into this one beautiful package.
Yeah.
Because you play as the main character, which is a famous lead singer that lost her voice due to some sci-fi shenanigans. And the tracks that you're listening throughout the game, they're all instrumental, except when you go kind of like inside of the character's head.
Yeah.
You hear her humming to the theme of the track that was going on. It's just all melts together so nicely.
It does. And again, it's incredibly like stylized. Very good. He did Bastion as well, I think.
Bastion
was incredible.
What's the company?
It's Supermassive Games.
Supergiant Games.
Giant, sorry.
Yeah, Supergiant. He does all Supergiant stuff, and it's consistently great.
And Pyre is the new one.
Yes, I need to check out Pyre. Me too. We should get it.
I haven't.
Yeah. So, thank you so much, guys. It was so much fun. Unfortunately, I suffer from vehophobia, fear of driving. But I love racing games, and Codemasters always satisfies my sense of speed. One more, and.
Right.
Yeah, and one more time, congratulations on Grid. I'm having a blast playing this game, and I wish you guys the best. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having us.
Cheers.
Thank you so much.